Hello. Hi, good evening. Well, now that's from where I am. If you are not, honestly, what came to my mind is if you are not in the part of the hemisphere of the world that I am, and I'm not even sure why hemisphere came to mind, but that's just what came to mind. So, good evening. Let me know that you can hear me and you can see me. Where are you joining us from? It's time for C Suite Speaks. It is time for C Suite Speaks. It is time for C Suite Speaks. So, um, how are you doing? How has your day been? I really hope that Instagram cooperates today. Again, I'm not sure what's going on, but happy to be here. Trust you're well. Trust your day has been good. Um, we're in the month of May, and a couple of times this month, I've asked myself again and again that are we really in May? Like, hey, this year is racing to half full, you know. But gratitude for every single day, I think for me, it's just the focus, like ending the day and saying, for today, I'm grateful. For today, I'm grateful. Just knowing that every single day, I'm grateful for the day. So, and this month, today is already 12, meaning that by the weekend, we're already halfway through this month. And I really hope that you are having a good time and you are finding reasons to be grateful. And maybe I should just ask that right away. What is one thing you are grateful for that has happened this month of May, for example, or even the year, right? For me, it's that I've been able to show up at work when I needed to. I couldn't go in last week, but grateful that I could go into yesterday. Grateful that I could work today. So I'm grateful for that, right? That I may have missed some days of work, but overall I've been able to show up at work and yes, make impact. So what are you grateful for? Let me know. Let me know. Let me know. What are you grateful for? What are you grateful for? What are you grateful for? How has your month been? How has the week been? um, I'm grateful that I've been able to show up at my speaking engagement. I'm grateful that I've been able to do value adding work at work. Happy that I've been able to do value adding work at work. Yeah, intentionally. Yeah, I said that I'm very grateful for that. I don't take it for granted. So yes. So I'm not sure what's going on with Instagram and the streaming platform that we use. This happened 2 weeks ago when we were live last, and it seems to be happening today again. For some reason, Instagram hasn't picked up yet. I don't know why, but I'm not sure what to do. Honestly, I'm not. So I don't know why Instagram hasn't picked yet. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But yes, these are the things I'm grateful for. Whenever I coach people, I ask people to tell me what they are grateful for their bosses, for example. And sometimes I hear very interesting things. Some people say there's nothing to be grateful for. That person hasn't taught me anything. And I say to them, not possible, not true. You've got to pause and think about it. Very, very likely there is something that your boss has taught you, you've learned, you're grateful for. And yeah, sometimes people struggle to find it, but usually there. So I'm going to try to re-add Instagram and let's just hope that it works this time. So our guest today, I'm super excited about our guest today because she's someone I've known for years. Again, every time I say this, I hope people really believe that it's true. This our coach, she's always saying she has known them for years, and she'll be calling long, long years. But I'm very, very, very honest. I've known this person for years. Um, Honestly, I'm not even now. I'm even now scared to say how long I've known this person because I'm asking myself. People are going to say, "Is it everybody that you've known for that long?" Honestly speaking, this one is true, right? I've known her for more than 15 years, and that's just the truth. No cap, like they say. I'm not just saying it for saying sake. I'm saying it because it's true. I've known her for years. We've known each other for years. We've worked together. We've grown. excuse me, together in our careers over the years, working side by side at different points in our careers, encouraging each other, and I'm just super proud of her growth, over the years. And so when I say I've known her for years, please take it as gospel, right? It's actually true. I've known her for over 15 years, and let's just keep it like that. Let us keep it like that. I've known her for years. Now, I hope I'm not scared of saying I've known people for years. Again, I've tried to reconnect on Instagram, so I don't know. But again, knowing about C Suite Speaks and the value that C Suite Speaks brings, right? I'd like you to do me a favor and repost this on your LinkedIn page and send it to your WhatsApp status, knowing the value that people would get, right, from C Suite Speaks. Please do me a favor and repost on your LinkedIn page and put it on your WhatsApp status, right? I am not sure. I've tried again to reconnect. Let me try something else. I've tried again to reconnect Instagram, but it's not going and it's distracting me trying to figure that out. And I came on here today to try to do this on time, but I don't know what's happening. So Control A, V, save. Let's see. I'm trying again. So what are you grateful for? If you're live with us on what's it called, on LinkedIn, let's know what are you grateful for. What are you grateful for? Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure what's the matter with Instagram, so I'm just going to leave it alone so that I can focus. It's distracting me. I'm going to leave it so I can focus. Yes, what are you grateful for? Let's see. Yeah, Oluwatosi from Airport Road. Thank you for joining, Tosi. How has your week been? How's your month been? If you're on LinkedIn, what in this month are you grateful for? What can you look at in this month, right? And say, yes, this is something that I'm happy for. This is something that, I'm grateful that, you know, that I'm grateful for. Hmm. I'm sorry, guys. I just saw something on LinkedIn. My goodness. Oh, okay. A DM, something unrelated, and I don't know. In fact, let me just say it, right? I just saw a DM from somebody marketing something that I have no clue what they're talking about, and I have no clue what it has no link to the work that I do. And I feel like that's an opportunity to talk about the fact that sometimes the way we communicate our work makes it look as if the work we're doing is not very valuable, or we are just communicating with we're just communicating in Greek. As in, how do you reach out to me to market something and I don't know what the person is marketing? Let me just see. In order to I work to help people achieve zero defects, and I'm just wondering, I have no business with stuff like this, right? And I feel like if you're a career person watching, one of the things you must be intentional to do is to communicate, giving feedback on progress on the work you're doing using language that your boss understands. And here's what I mean. For example, when you are listening to your boss speak and they're asking you or giving you directions or instructions on what to do on a piece of work, don't just seek to hear what they are saying in terms of, oh, okay, we need to prepare the report, it needs to be this. But if they say, for example, we need to prepare the presentation, instead of presentation they say we need to prepare the deck. In giving your own feedback, pick that word deck as well. Does that make sense to us? Like, make sure your languaging reflects that you are actually listening. There is something that happens when people feel like you are hearing what they are saying. They may not even consciously be able to make the link, the tie, but somehow hearing their own words and expressions. There's sometimes that I go as far as writing down those expressions that my boss uses. Yes, I do that. I write it down and I try to infuse that in my conversation. So when you are listening for instructions or you're talking to a client, for example, I had a client then, and this example always comes to mind when I teach about communication. I had a client who was telling me about fixing a meeting, and the client says, "Oh, that does Wednesday AM, for example, works?" And I was like, "Which one is Wednesday AM again?" And then thank God for God, it clicked. Oh, AM means morning. Oh, I'm like, oh no, Wednesday AM doesn't work for me. Thursday PM works. I could have said Thursday afternoon works and I would have been correct, right? Or but just putting it back to the person in the language they have used to express themselves to you is so powerful. So in your communication, in your engaging with your leaders, when in your engaging with client stakeholders, listen to the way they express themselves, right? Listen to the way they communicate instructions and try and use that language in back. When you use that language, it's the way it just shows that you are paying attention. And it's not necessarily because somebody is sitting down and saying, is Femi paying attention? So they are watching. Are you using the words that but when they hear those things back, please, someone in the comments help me because I also believe I'm not speaking to myself. Like, you get what I'm saying. Be intentional in your communication, be intentional in the things you say, be intentional with what you use, right? As the words, as the phrases, as the sentences, to just communicate, your feedback, right? So our guest is in the building. We're going to bring her on right now, but she's going to be off video for a bit, and then after on she will come back. She will come on video. So our guest is in the building again today. I forgot to lay out my shekere to welcome our guest, but let it be that we. Woo! Our guest is in the building. Our guest is in the building. Like I explained, she can't turn on her video immediately, but we'll give it a short while and she'll be able to turn on her video. Hey sis, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi, good
Awesome.
evening.
I can hear you. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I don't take this for granted. Thank you. I'm sorry about the situation. I've explained to our people that you can't turn on video for now, but you will turn it on later on. So thank you so much for joining. I really am waiting for her to turn on video because this my sister friend is a diva, right? So you can rest assured that you're gonna like when she turns on her video. But we're going to make this work, and I like to start. I like to start C Suite Speaks with just setting the tone for why we're here, right? Why did I start doing C Suite Speaks? Sometime last year, I started watching a lot more of Steve Bartlett's show, Diary of a CEO, and for me, it came across to me as something that is teaching people, just sharing stories essentially. Like, it was just for me a story sharing story, of people's purpose, people's impact, their various fields of expertise. And I thought, I got inspired one day and said, hey, why not also begin to share stories of leaders, right? People see, oh, this person is a partner, this person is an MD, executive director, and they feel like, wow, wow. And they don't know the story behind the growth. They don't know the groanings, the
Oh,
greats,
yeah.
right? Behind that story. And I said to people that I'm doing C-suite speak so that when people listen to these stories, they can say, okay, if this person can be here, their today looks like my tomorrow. Their today looks like my desire tomorrow. If that's the case, it means that if I listen to them and learn from them, then it means that my own tomorrow, right, can be like their today. So that's the whole idea. Just to have you share your story. How did you get here? What are the things, lessons that you would tell younger Lolade you get? Like, so for context, everyone, our guest is Lolade Ajayi. Lolade is a partner with a big four consulting firm, and that's no mean feat, right? To have risen to that level, there's a level of success and impact that you should have delivered for you to be at that level, right? And like I said, I've known Lolade for years, and guys, I'm serious. When I tell people that don't my guests for years, they're always like, I'm sure they're like, everybody in there, this is our happy employee coach has known for years, but it's true because I'm bringing people in my own circle, people that I can learn from as well. I'm not just bringing anybody. I'm bringing people that I can learn from as well, and I always take copious notes when they are speaking. Right. So, welcome, 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 Loladi. Thank you for joining us, and would like to start by you introducing yourself, about yourself and your journey, and we'll just sail from there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me on your channel. Um, when you about this, I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? So I just, went to listen to, you know, recorded most. I was really excited, about the vision of this. and about what we hope to achieve with this. And I was like, immediately, I was like, yes, yes, this is it. So thank you again for having me on your platform. I will just
Thank you.
yeah, history background about myself, how I'm today. I- From you know, I was a science in secondary school.
Really?
The massive. The turning point for me was after secondary school. I wanted to go into tech, and I did so well with the maths. My other subjects, yes, I did well, but it wasn't something that I really wanted to. But I was really good with, calculations. And then at the time, we spoke to a counselor, and the counselor, why don't you even try the commercial sciences? And I'm like, okay, let's give it a shot, and then in it because you have to that others had learned from secondary school all the way. But we settled in. So I would say before I even continue, I would just say that my story is the story of grace and the gift of people, right? Because where I am today is a function of the people that have given me wise counsel. It's the people that guide me, and to me, in areas I was so trying to in
So like the line seems to be
ships
breaking.
with
Ah, the line seems to be breaking. Is it me? Is it me? Is it me? Sis, can you hear me? Is it breaking?
yes.
Okay, you are back now. It was breaking, right? So I heard
Oh
up to the bits of you are someone who has received wise counsel and from people who have
yeah,
spoken to and spoken for you. But after that, I didn't
yes.
hear much. So if you could
Okay, I
just
think that's where I
yes.
actually stopped. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Okay, so I'll move forward to my university days. Can you still hear me? Just checking that you
Yes,
can
I
hear
can. I
me.
can.
Okay. So moving forward to my university days, um, I made associations and friendships with, people who were leading in the class. I also joined tutorials, just to bring me up to speed together with my peers. So I think for me, a learning point for everyone is you don't have to know it all,
Mm,
right? Form associations with people that do know it, engage them, and learn from it. There is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with learning. I would say that after I formed those associations, and of course, I put in the work as well, I graduated with a 2-1, right? So, and then afterwards, I joined KPMG. Now, my decision to join KPMG was also from a perspective of the gift of people. And why do I say that? During university days, we had internship, and I worked with a company during my internship. And the CFO at the time called me and said, Lolade, what's your long-term vision? I see you're smart, I see you're bright. What do you want to do? And I was saying, I want to stick, with this field and everything. And he was like, you know what? Go and start with the big four, right? The big four is a training ground. You get to learn, you get to hone your skills, and you can take it forward from there. And I was like, okay, I'll put that into consideration. He just said, make sure you finish with a 2-1 or first class. And I'm like, I said, well, on track, well, on track. So I said, that's fine. So when we graduated from university, we had like an alumni meetup, and still in the alumni meetup, that big four still resonated. right? So I said, okay, I think this is a confirmation of what I was told earlier. I will apply. So I applied to all the big fours. And I would say that the Spirit of the Lord led me to KPMG,
Hmm.
right? Things happened along the way, but KPMG was where God wanted me to be. And I
Hmm.
mean, it's evident today that I was walking in line with the will of God. I will start from my graduate training. We wrote the test. When I finished writing the test, I was like, oh my God, please, because I wasn't sure if I was going to pass. I wasn't going to pass. I was just like, please. And then at the time, the test results used to come out immediately. So you'd write the test and sit down and wait. And then a partner will come in and discuss, KPMG, the solution areas. So while he was talking about the solution areas, working with KPMG and everything, I was just like, I'm not even hearing what this guy is saying. Let the results come out. And then they started calling names, and I was just praying. And then my name just got called. In fact, I wasn't even sure I heard my name. I was like, please, can you take it again? you know. And they said my name again. I was like, fantastic. And then I went through the interview process, and I joined the firm. In the first year, it was a struggle. Why? Well, I mean, it wasn't really a struggle. So we did the work, but my rating was SP5. I don't know if you remember what SP5 is at the
Yep.
time, you know, and I was like, what? So I had to, put my head down, put in the work, be diligent, and that reminds me of what the Bible says when he says, "Seest thou a man diligent in his business, he shall stand before kings." So I put in the work, and then of course, the performance got better, over time. um it's also important to say that I had a solid support structure as well, because having to put in the work, we would have to do late nights. Sometimes I would get home at 1 a.m., sometimes I'd get home at 12:30. I mean, then Lagos was reasonably safe at the time,
Hmm.
but because we had deliverables to work on and we had to deliver, I used to work really late, so I had that support structure to support me while I was heavily invested in building the career within KPMG. So if you're new to the Big Four or any other organization and you're starting up, get the right support structure to help
Hmm.
you. It's very important for you, so that you can also scale, in your career. Fast forward to growing up in the firm, right? There was a time that I was delayed for a year, right? And it was basically because I had things to work on. It was a difficult pill to swallow, but I did it, and then I worked on those areas. And I would like to put a lesson there as well to say
Hmm.
feedback is for you, right? Any feedback given to you is for you and for your personal development. When you leave wherever you go, you take the improvement with you.
Hmm.
So I did the work, I took in the feedback and I did the work. And the subsequent year, I made that milestone that I was looking forward to. So you need to continuously work on yourself. Personal development, taking in constructive feedback is very critical, for a successful career. Nobody knows it all and nobody is the best, right? So when people have identified things you need to work on, it's because they are objectively seeing something that you actually need to improve on. So work on it and transform yourself. At the end of the day, it's still for you,
Hmm.
right? So I'll just quickly move on. So when I made that milestone, in fact, before I made that milestone, to make a milestone, you had to have a solid business case. So I had to sit back and think, what do I want to be known for?
Hmm.
You know, and that inspired me into carving out a niche for myself. So I was part of the foundational people to start. an accounting academy within the firm, the open training academy within the firm. That was my business case.
Mm,
So it's important that when you are approaching milestones, or even as you grow in your career, you need to be able to carve out a niche for yourself. What do you want to be known for? Beyond, of course, we know that you can deliver. I mean, we've seen you over the years, you can deliver the work, but what exactly do you want to be known for? And that is what will distinguish you from the rest of your colleagues and your peers. So what do you want to be known for? You need to be able to identify that and carve out a niche for yourself,
mm,
right?
mm,
um and I would also say that if you have missed a promotion at any point in your career, I would also like to encourage you to say that delay is not denial, right?
mm,
It may be delayed, but it will come. What do
mm,
you need to do? Keep working on yourself, keep improving, and keep being the best at what you do, right? And then at the end of the day, it will speak for itself. Time will tell it to speak for itself.
mm,
Okay, so I will just continue to move on. As I continued with the firm, there were different milestones in between.
mm,
And what worked for me is that I had mentors and I had sponsors. And I'm sure a lot of us have heard a lot about having mentors and having sponsors. A mentor is someone that guides you through the process. A sponsor is someone that speaks for you when you're not there and that even recommends you and takes you for opportunities. I had mentors and I had sponsors. I typically have mentors and sponsors as separate people. You can decide to have it as one individual, but I chose to have it as separate people because my mentor was the person I was reporting to, and I had a sponsor that was a completely independent person because I wanted independent perspective as well. So I
mm,
made it two different people. So I had mentors that nominated me. I mean, based on the work spoke for itself, but they nominated me. I had sponsors that spoke for me as I went along the line. And then guess what? As we were going along the line, there was this jackpot syndrome. People just started to relocate, you know, and you have friends and they're like, "What are you still doing here?" And I'm like,
mm,
"Where I should be." I am exactly where I should be, and that's why it's important for you to know what the will of God is for you, right?
mm.
I'm sorry, I have to just keep bringing God because
Please.
my story is a story of grace,
Mm-hmm.
and of my personal walk with God. You
Mm,
know, I was exactly where God wanted me to be, and I won't say that I didn't try to look out. And then this is an open and honest conversation, so I'm not even going to try to. I won't say that I didn't try to look out. I did try to look out, right? And I did get offers, but that was not what God wanted. God wanted me here, and I remained, within KPMG. So it's important that as you grow in your career, you need to understand what the will of God is for you, and you're
mm,
working in line with the will of God for your life. So when people were leaving and they were saying they were going to look for greener pastures and all of that, I'm like, the grass is only greener where you nurture it.
mm,
You nurturing your grass, or you want to go somewhere else and you are going to start nurturing it? Is it going to actually be easier for you,
mm,
or you're going to start building relationships again, start building friendships again? I'm like, you can decide. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with people that have relocated, absolutely nothing wrong. It's
mhm,
your personal conviction. But my conviction was I can make my own grass greener here.
mm,
So I stayed back here and I made my grass greener here. So it's important to just do you. There will definitely be a bandwagon effect,
mm,
but it's important to stay true to yourself. What's your vision for yourself? What do you want to achieve for yourself? And stay true to it, and it will speak eventually. So stay true to yourself, The grass is greener where you nurture it. So nurture your environment, nurture where you are, nurture your career, and you'll see it blossom, with
Mm,
time. I would also like to say that in my journey and my career within KPMG, I've experienced failure as well,
mm,
right? But there's absolutely nothing wrong with failing. What you do after the failure that matters.
mm,
And I will speak about a particular milestone that I was supposed to make. Um, I did the process. So we had a mock up before the final milestone, and I passed the mock up. I passed it very well, and then it was time for the final one, and I don't know what happened, but I didn't do so well. But what did I do? I went back. I was given time, and I went back to prepare, right? And I engaged everyone that had done that particular assessment after
mm,
myself. I spoke to each and every one of them. I got tips. I went back. I put in the work. I studied. And that's why I say that my career is also a testament to the gift of people, because
mm,
all through my career, I've had the gift of men,
mm,
with me. So during the preparatory stages, I would talk to different people. I would talk to partners, and then I would put in the work. And I went in for the second assessment, and I scaled through. In
mm,
fact, I got recognized for my writing ability in that assessment. To
mm.
say that, when you fail, I don't know if you can still hear me.
Yes, yes, loud and clear.
Okay. So
Mm,
when failure comes, it's not
mm,
because you were not perfect or you were not good. You just needed time to prepare. So
mm,
do you stay and wallow in the setback, or you continue to make progress? You continue to put in the work, you continue to do better,
mm.
So what you do with failure matters. If you
Yeah.
use
Mm,
failure as a stepping board to continue to build on your success, you will then be successful. But if you wallow in it, then you won't be able to get past it. And that was my story.
mm,
So I think that's basically my career. Then I made
mm,
partner, and it's been, to the glory of God, it's been good from then on. I
mm.
would also
Wow.
like to emphasize the importance of network. Having
Uh-huh.
the right network is also very important. And why do I say that? So I did my ICANN, and for the longest time, um, I didn't do any other professional exam, and then I had this network of friends. They're KPMG, ex KPMG, and we challenged ourselves, and we said, if you haven't done an MBA, do an MBA. If you haven't done a DBA,
Mm.
do a DBA after the MBA. And guess what? I started doing a dual program, MBA and DBA. So I
Wow.
will be graduating with my friends who are currently doing DBAs. So it's important to have the right network of people that will guide you along your path. You can never go wrong. My network of friends, we call ourselves the Ladies Club. We pray together, we celebrate our milestones together. We're all forward looking. We celebrate our milestones together. We encourage ourselves, to do better together. Um, and we are watching and we're seeing the growth together. So have a network of friendship or friends that will support you and pivot you as you go along your career. So I think I'll just pause here, and I'm happy
Wow.
to take it forward from here.
Wow. 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 This is really been insightful. Like, I have quite a number of questions, and I'm just saying, where do we start from? Where do we start from? Where do we start from? But because I know we have a wide variety of audience, right, across the platforms, I want to take it back to when you were doing your internship. You
Yeah.
said that the CFO asked you that, I can see you're smart, I can see you're hardworking, go for the big four. How would you describe, and now having been involved in hiring, being a supervisor yourself, a manager, and rising all through the ranks, how would you describe a hardworking intern? Just for any intern who is watching this to know, okay, this is what someone will be looking out for to see that, I am hardworking, right? So let's start from internship. How would you describe a hardworking intern? What are the things you would see that will make you say, yes, this person is hardworking?
Okay, I would start by saying you need to be trainable,
Hmm.
right? You need to be willing to learn. You cannot know it all. And as an intern, the expectation is that you don't even know anything at all. So, are
Mhm.
you willing to put your head down and learn? And that's the foundation. Once you're able to learn, there's nothing that you cannot do. I started by learning how to use the accounting system. From learning how to use the accounting system, I moved on to reconciliations. I owned the process.
Hmm.
From doing reconciliations, I owned an entire finance process, AP. It was just like a 3 month stint, but I was moving, I was making waves, and the guy had to take an interest in it, in what I was doing. So you need to be able to put in the work. You need to be able to learn. So once you're willing to learn and you're willing to put in the work, you will distinguish yourself. So it's not even about hard work, even smart work as well. Because I resumed at 8 o'clock, I left at 5, and I finished everything I was supposed to do.
Hmm.
So I didn't have to take work away. So you need to be able to put in the work, right? And you need to be willing to learn. It's very important. If you're willing to
Hmm.
learn, people are willing to teach you more of what they know, and then you can take it forward from there.
Hmm. I like how you landed this. So you said if you are willing to learn, people will be willing to teach you what they know. Hey, I think it's so important. When as you were describing it, I could see someone. It's almost like people can read you when they see you, and they know this person showing off as they know it all, or I want to learn it all, right? So I think that's just so important as an intern. So if you're an intern watching this, please pay attention. She said that she didn't have to stay there late night. So it's not about the late night. It's about willingness to learn, learning those things, and then taking ownership for certain parts of the work. I think that's just so important, right? You talked about having a solid support structure for you know any parent of a young person watching this now, okay, who is going into the workforce. What would you advise that parent, right, to give their children a support structure? And for any child who is going into workforce, maybe entering the big four, how would you advise them to get that support structure from their parents? So there are two things here. So speak to the parents, right? How to help their children maximize the early years, and then to the person who is just starting out, how to engage their parents to get that support.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Can you still hear
Yes,
me?
yes, yes.
Okay, fantastic. So for our parents, it's our responsibility to nurture our children. I mean, we've done that over the years, but it's just to continue to nurture them and encourage them and bring out the best in them. I had my down days. I really did have my down days. There were days I would work over the weekend, but they were encouraged. They continued to encourage me, and that also further gave me the strength to continue. So encourage your children. Let them know that they are doing well, they are doing the best, and they should continue to do the best. Words of affirmation, is very important to helping your children succeed. For the children now that are now in the workforce, the young adults, apologies, that are now in
Yeah.
the workforce, yes, it's important that um, we continue to be diligent. And I understand that there will be good days, there will be some not so good days. In the not so good days, allow yourself to feel it. There's absolutely nothing wrong in feeling it. Sometimes I will go to the restroom and I'll go and cry and I'll clean my face and come back and continue working. Allow yourself to feel the process. It is human and it is normal. There's
Mm,
absolutely nothing wrong. are days that you will be overwhelmed and you just want to transfer the aggression. You can go somewhere and scream, you know, and release that pressure and then come back and continue. Life will continue, the work will continue, but you have improved on yourself, right? So you need to be able to let out the steam and then continue, with the work, which is why I actually have a vibrant social life, because sometimes when I want to just ease out the pressure, I'm outside, because sometimes it's gotten so much that I just need to exhale, and then I just go and do what I like to do best, and then I'm back to the grind. So that
Hmm.
would be my advice.
So I'm going to piggyback just right there where you stopped, which
Yeah,
is said exhale. That
yeah,
says to me that you need to be intentional as an employee to
sure,
have avenues to exhale, right?
absolutely.
Please, can you
Yeah.
share? I mean, this is not just for maybe not just what works for you, but what you've seen work for others in terms of how do we exhale? How do we even know it's time to exhale? How do we find what works for us? Just share your experience, and within your network as well.
Okay. So how when do we know it's time? I'll start from that, then I'll move on to the how. When do we know it's time to exhale? When you are very sensitive, any little thing upsets you, any little thing annoys you. Somebody has done something and then you're shouting, you're transferring the aggression. You know that it's time to exhale. When you've been under a lot of pressure with work, and the pressure doesn't seem to stop and it's getting to you, it's time to exhale. And there's absolutely nothing wrong in exhaling, absolutely nothing wrong. So just know your limits, know when you're sensitive, know, I mean, when you see that the person that you are demonstrating or portraying is different from the person that you truly are, then you know that you need to exhale. And what do I do? Personally, I have my self-care days. I go to the spa, I go for a massage. By the time they press my body, the pressure has left me, you know.
Yeah.
I also go out, just to meet other people, engage. I'm a social butterfly, so I do like to meet people. So, and I engage, and it just takes my mind away from the stress, you know, and then I'm able to come back to it, differently. Some people like to read books, you know, as their way of taking their mind off work for a
Mm.
bit. They read books. Some people like to watch movies. Anything that you like to do, that makes you happy, just do it. Just do it. And then you can come back to it.
I want us to still stay on this, right? Because I think that sometimes, and my own experience as well, working in the Big Four, is I found that sometimes I was already at break point. So
Yeah.
I was literally forced to stop, right? I
Yeah.
remember, I mean, like you said, go to the bathroom, cry. How many? Sometimes I just try to remind myself that Neka, don't be because when people come and tell me they are crying, I'm like, all of us cried, all of us are crying, you
All of
know.
us cried. Oh.
Well, we're all crying. Cry is not a. We all cry and move on with life. After crying, next, I almost feel that
Yeah.
way, But I wanted to stay on this, talking about scheduling these things, right? What do you think
Yeah.
about scheduling these things? Not even waiting, because I find that people who are able to schedule these things seem to have a more balanced, I don't know, this thing they call Zen versus,
Yeah.
and I think I tended to be on the extreme where I'm literally crashing out. Like I a couple of times I've cried because I was missing a timeline and my husband's looking at me and wondering, what is it? I'm literally
Mm.
crying in tears because a timeline is missed. And he's like,
Yeah.
what's in heaven's name is going on? Right? I'm even asking myself
Yeah.
that, what's with you? Why are you crying because of a timeline? So can you just share your experience, and counsel people, especially those of us who are watching, who are in the consulting space, yeah, in the Big Four. You need to pay attention here because I find that sometimes we don't know when to stop.
So when to stop? Hmm. How do you know when to stop? Uh it's really difficult because everybody is different, right?
Mm,
So everybody works differently.
mm,
But I would say that you need to understand your body, understand what works for you, and based on that, stop. For me, I listen to my body. When I start sneezing, when it's not raining, when I
mm,
start coughing, my eyes are red, I know that I'm worn out. So I need to take a break. And I know that, it might be difficult during tough engagements to actually take that break. What do? I make the most of my weekends. So I
mm,
get the work done during the week, and then I take out time to actually rest on weekends. You need to be deliberate about and intentional about your rest and your body, because they say body is not wood. How do they even say it? That's
mhm,
exactly what it is.
mhm,
If you do not listen to your body, it will teach you. And there have been times that I've broken down in the course of the work because I did not stop. So you need to be able to listen to your body, know when to stop, find an outlet. Some people even find the outlet by going to the gym. They just work out,
mm.
burn out all the stress, and then relax afterwards. You need to be able to find an outlet. But more importantly, listen to yourself, listen to your body, and know when to stop.
I like that. An outlet is important. And I think that when we talk about outlets, outlets are important not just for stress, but for a balanced worldview. I'm not, that's the best way I can think of saying it. The outlets are important, not just for stress, but for a balanced worldview. If all you are seeing is the work, you're not going to be able to bring the best to that work, right? All you are seeing is work, 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 right? You can't bring the best to the work. So I think it's important. Outlets are important. Let me ask. You said at some point that you were delayed, right? Because there were things for you to work on.
Sure.
Can you, share with us a bit more? For anyone who is listening now, who has gotten some feedback that is either confusing them, or they feel is not correct, or they feel, just share your views around how you process feedback, how you listen, tips also for anybody who has to give people feedback. How should they go about it as well?
Okay. So for me, there were things I needed to work on. I wouldn't like to go into the details,
Oh,
but
no, no, that's fine. No, please do.
um,
You don't need to, yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, like I said, you don't need to go into the details. It's fine.
Yeah, sure, sure. But for me, it's important that you listen, right? Listen to the feedback. I know that there are things that you wouldn't like to hear, but you need to be able to listen and understand. And if you need clarification, ask for it, ask for clarity, because you need to understand what the issue is. And once you are done, do an introspection. You need to go back and do an introspection to find out, okay, this is what they're saying. Is it really the case? You know, and then based on that, come up with action plans to turn it around. I had to I had to come up with some action plan. I had to do some things, to be able to turn it around. And that worked for me. But you need to, like I said before, you need to take it as personal development. Every feedback is given to you for your personal development, and that's what I did.
Mm,
I took the feedback in. I worked on those areas that I was asked to work on. I consolidated on the other areas, and I then followed up and ensured that it was being recognized. So what do I mean by that? I would meet on a monthly basis to say, how am I doing? Are you seeing the progress? Are you seeing the improvement? What can I do differently? And I just kept on having those check-ins, just to ensure that I'm actually I'm putting in the work and it can be seen as well. So I
mm,
continue to follow up. So continuous follow up, continuously putting in the work is very important. Now, for those giving feedback, it's important that we are also emotionally intelligent, right? with the demographic of the workforce today, we have Gen Zs. I think we're even bringing in Gen Alphas as well. We have the millennials and we have Gen X. We have like four generations. You
Mm,
know, what a millennial was able to take then, Gen Alpha and Gen Z cannot take it. So you need to
mm,
be emotionally intelligent, and that's the same case with even raising kids of this generation as well. You can't
mhm.
use the same hand that they used to raise you
Nope.
to raise them. It will be a complete fail, an
Mm,
epic fail at that. So
mhm,
you need to understand the demography of the workforce, one. Then you need to be able to understand the person you're talking to. And what do I mean by that? Listen to the person. So before you give the feedback, how are you? You know, and you need to be genuine about it, right? Because everybody can see through you. So
mm,
if you're going through the motions, it will be very clear. So you need to be genuinely concerned about the welfare of the employee before you give the employee feedback.
mm,
So, how are you? How have you been? How has this period been for you? What were your challenges? What were your high points? What were your low points? Just have a general conversation, and that will get the employee to open up to you. And then the second thing I would like to say is in giving feedback, you start from what they did well. You don't just go and then start hitting the nail with a hammer. You need to be able to set the tone for the feedback. So, what have you done well? We have seen that you have done this, this, this. We recognize your work. We want to appreciate you. We want to do this. And then you can then subtly move on to the areas for improvement,
mm,
right? However, we have noticed this, and then and it can be a dialogue, right? So you've noticed this, what are your thoughts around it? And then hear the person out. It's important that as someone, as a supervisor, as a manager, giving feedback, you also need to be able to listen, because you need to be able to get perspective and then be able to bring in perspective as well. So you need to listen. So listen, and then as you're listening to the employee, you can guide the employee through what has gone wrong, and then guide the employee into coming up with actions. It's a skill, but once you master it, you know, you are good to go. So at the end of the day, the corrective action is actually coming from the employee, not yourself,
mm,
because from the dialogue, you know, you've been able to explain how it's gone, and then the employee has been able to do an assessment of himself or herself, and then is saying, okay, this is what I should have done differently. So
mm,
to know that you've gotten it right, the employee has to be the one to offer the action
mm,
plans to work on. Yeah, so that's how you know that you've gotten it right. But
mm,
there has to be some level of guidance along the way, and that's how to do feedback, because the person needs to acknowledge that this is my area for improvement, and then now come up with ways that they think that they can resolve it, and then you can guide along the process,
mm.
and that's how to give feedback.
I like what you've described, right? Because clearly you're saying don't just ask the question for asking sake, as a checklist, so to say.
Yeah,
But be
correct.
fully present in being, and people can tell whether you're interested or not. It's
Absolutely.
really interesting. I mean, my kids today were saying, one of them was saying, oh, daddy's not here. It's good. Sometimes we can ask daddy a question and he will just say yes. He's not even hearing what we are saying, but mommy will listen to every single thing and know when and I'm like, goodness, these children, and so they know when to ask daddy when daddy is doing something, so that that is not really listening to them. They can quickly ask him and he will say yes and they will move on. I mean, if children under 10 are saying this, then how much more full grown adults? People can actually tell when you are genuinely interested in them and their progress, and
Sure.
when you are just seeing them as work tools, to be honest. And I think that's something
Yeah.
that every leader needs to pay attention to. Your people cannot just be work tools to you. They need to be able
Absolutely.
to see that you are invested in their progress, you are invested in their success. You actually want them. You're literally rejoicing with those that rejoice. And that's the way I can
Yeah.
say it. You actually
Yeah.
actively advancing, their own rejoicing. You want them to rejoice. So that's just so beautiful. Thank you very much. Another
Sure.
question I want to ask is, you talked about the place and the need for mentors and sponsors, right?
Sure.
For mentors and sponsors. I'd like you to create and you distinguish them, that a mentor is a guide, or a sponsor speaks for you and can recommend you. I want you to talk about the difference a little bit more, and then how did you go about identifying, okay, these people, and also just sharing as well, right? What will make someone be willing to be my mentor in the workplace? What makes it easy for someone to say, I will mentor this person? Must they say
Mm.
it will mentor you before they become your mentor? Must they say, okay, I'll be your sponsor? Must they use those words? Or is it just something that you just segue into that kind of relationship and you just continue? So please just, explain to us a bit about this mentor sponsor conversation.
Okay. So thanks for that question. For me, the mentors that I've had in my career, growing up in my career, haven't been people that have gone to say, be my mentor. Yes, you can be my mentor. And then we start. No. I identified people that took a genuine interest in my well being and my career development.
Hmm.
And based on that, I engaged more. So if you're waiting for someone to say, I want to be your mentor, that's not going to happen, right? But if you are approaching a senior person, you're having discussions with that person, the person is guiding you, that's already a mentoring relationship without a definition. You don't have to block a time, but I know that when I call you and I'm discussing with you, I'm having that time already. And for all the mentors that I've had, they're just a phone call away, and I'm just like, I'll have something to discuss with you. And then they're like, okay, call me at this time. And then we call, we discuss, and that's it. So you don't have that, it doesn't have to be a formal arrangement. Formal arrangements are good, particularly for very busy people. So you can schedule their time, on their calendars and all of that. But there are other informal arrangements that even more efficient, if you ask me. Um, so identify people who have your, best interest at heart, who have taken a liking into your well-being, and then engage from there. And then for me, I just looked at, this when I was much younger. I looked at the senior people who was even more approachable. So for mentors, what's your disposition as well? Are you an approachable person, or do you have this resting bitch face that scares people away? So you need to also ensure that you are putting an approachable demeanor, and people feel comfortable, around you. That's for the mentors. For the mentees, I just looked, and I saw, and then I approached, I asked questions, and we took it from there. For sponsors, different ball game. I actually then approached, to say, I want you to be my sponsor. For some people I did, for some other people I just didn't. But in the engagement, because they were completely outside my unit, in the engagement, it was clear that I wanted this role particularly, that they would play for me. And and we went along, that way. But for other people, I actually did request, that they be my sponsor. This is what I want to achieve. And I need you to help me achieve it. So it's important as a mentee to know what you want for yourself, because people are not able to give you help when you don't know what help you require. So you
Hmm.
need to be able to know what you want for yourself and then go for it. So if, for instance, you want to be able to demonstrate executive presence and you need a sponsor or a coach along that line, then you need to look for someone who is already demonstrating that and then engage. So you need to know what you want. You need to know the areas that you need to improve on, and then you then get sponsors along those specific lines to
Hmm.
support.
Wow, I
Yeah.
like what you shared. The difference between mentors and sponsors, not waiting for it to be formal. But around sponsors, you've said that you directly have gone to the person and said, hey, I want you to be my sponsor to achieving this goal, to achieving this, So let me ask, what would make a someone you meet and ask that question willing to say yes? Like from your own experience and what you've reasoned to in your own career. If someone were to come and meet you and ask that question, what would make, you know, and where you've seen people, share their own experiences around that, what makes it, because I don't think it's just anybody that anybody would say yes to. So what will make it, easy, if I will put it that way, or worthy of their time, to say yes to that kind of request?
Okay, so you need to be passionate. You need to show that passion. And what do I mean by that? Um so there's something you want to achieve and you're approaching someone, right? You need to know what you want to talk about, because sometimes these people are very busy people. And if you're going for a session without an agenda, it won't work. It just feels like you're not serious, and then the person will just take you at the surface level. So I'm approaching a sponsor. I want you to sponsor me. These are the things I would like to work on, right? I want to work on one, two, three, four, five, six things, and you're specific. And then based on that, there's already a guide that your sponsor or your mentor can work with. But if you really don't know what you want and you're not even passionate about it, they can see it as well. So
Hmm.
because and they will give you the availability based on whenever they feel that they're available. But once the passion is there, once you know what you want, and once you're engaging with a focused view, it gives a perspective to the discussions that will happen, right? And then to show how serious you are, you schedule another meetup at the same time. When you have your initial discussion, you need to have a follow-on conversation, and you need to get their commitment for a follow-on conversation. That's also very important, because if you leave it as one of, things will get cold and nothing happens. So you need to continue to stay in touch, follow up, and then also show genuine interest in your mentor or sponsor as well. Because if you're just reaching out, what time are you available, without even asking about their well-being and how the pressure of work is, it also doesn't work. So you need to be able to, so genuine interest has to be based, but you also need to ensure that you are following up as well.
Hmm. Hmm. I like how you said that, because two things: you are the one as a person seeking that has to demonstrate
Yeah,
seriousness, right? It's not them that will
yeah,
be pursuing you and chasing you and all of that. You are the one rich, so you
yeah,
need to demonstrate that, and then you must show interest in them as well. Don't just be someone who wants to get up to them and take, but also how do you also add to them? I really like that. Thank you very much. I know that we're already, I mean, on the 1 hour mark since the show began. I know, even though we didn't start till about 7:43 or four thereabout. But I want to ask, so we'll be done very soon, so that I can let you go, and because I really appreciate the time. You talked about from the beginning, as in like within the first 3 or 4 sentences, you already said your story is one of grace, and the gift of people, right?
yeah,
And I tell people that people are doors, right? A door either opens to opportunity or closes against opportunities. So you've got to be wise in your dealings with them. But your stops, and you shared with us about sponsors and mentors. Can you share with us about people, your own circle? You talk about the right network. How does one early in their
yeah.
career find that right network? Let me ask that before I now ask the final question. How does one find that right network? How do you find the right network? Is right circle.
Okay. So I'll start from an early on career. What I did was I built a network with people on my level. And what did that give me? It gave me access to what people were doing, how they were doing it, who they were speaking with, who were their mentors, and that gave me access. I also shared my experiences as well. So the peer access is also a great way to start building a network of friends or building a network of people. Moving on from there, along the line, with engaging clients, with discussing with clients, I also found people with similar interests from a career perspective, from even a social perspective, and that drew me to them as well. So you can access, and based on that, I was introduced to people with shared interest as well, and we took it up from there. There are also other professional networks that you can join depending on your interest. Um, there's Wimbies, for young ladies, that are growing and aspiring to become leaders in the future. There's the Wimbies, there's the Whisker, that's women in successful careers, women in business and management. So there are professional associations that you can also join to expand your network and build that base. And then for my personal networks, which is the network, the ladies club I spoke about, these are people that were in KPMG. Some of them were my seniors, some of them were my juniors, but we had a common interest and we bonded over that. And based on that, we established something that we now have. So we have a group where we just discuss, if anybody has a challenge, they put it up. We come together, we set our goals together because nobody's going to be left behind. We have touch points on a monthly basis. We hang out together, and we are growing together.
Hmm.
Your circle of influence. You need to be able to be with your peers. It could be, people with the secondary schoolmates that are doing interest, based on your interest, based on your professional networks, your career, depending on what you want to achieve, and then just join and grow from there.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing. I like the fact of seeing people with similar interests. And many people sometimes discount the power of peer, you called it, what's the word you used? Peer access, building peer access, right? We discount that. We're looking far. We want to first of all connect with this big person or that big person or that senior person. Don't discount the impact and the beauty and the learning opportunities you can get from peer access. My final question today will be around your faith. Over the course of this conversation, you've mentioned your faith a couple of, not a couple, quite a number of times,
Lots of
right?
time.
And
Yes.
for me, it's just such a powerful testament to how convinced you are about the role of your faith in God in your career and shaping your life. And for me, that's just so powerful. So I wanted to share with us tips, for a personal walk with God. How has that work evolved for you as a career person, especially a career person in the kind of high pressure environment? So I wanted to answer the question, coming from the place of this has been my experience, right? It can be challenging here. It wasn't challenging this way. This is how I dealt with. This is how I'm dealing with it. Just sharing with us around this building and keeping a personal walk with God in spite of the work pressure or alongside the work pressure. However, we define that. Oops, we seem to have lost our guest. I hope it's not me. No, I think I can still see and hear myself, but we seem to have lost our guest. I'm hoping that she's able to join back quickly, and I'm really grateful that so far the network has held for us to be able to get to this point. I know that lessons have been learned. I'm hoping that she's able to join back soon so that we can wrap this up. We have really learned a lot. I've taken lots of notes. As you people know, happy employees know, I like to take notes during these sessions because I learn. That place of asking for sponsors was something that has hit me because I don't think, I've ever sat down personally to meet somebody and say, oh, be my sponsor. But hearing that and saying, hey, you know, I asking someone personally to be my sponsor, that's just so powerful. So she's back. She's back.
Yeah.
She's back. Fantastic. So let's go. I was just saying, thank God our network held, so for so
Yes.
long.
So,
Even we could see your face, and I'm not happy, boy. No problem. It's at least
apologies.
we could hear you clearly. So let's wrap up on that question around your faith, the place of your faith. How have you serviced it, right? And
Mm.
what tips will you share? Because I mean, you've been working for almost 2 decades now. What tips will you share with people who are watching and listening?
Okay, I would like to start by saying I'm still a work in progress, and I'm sure every other person is also a work in progress. Um, so my journey with God is a journey. it's pretty much a journey. I relate with God like I'm relating with you, like I'm talking to you. So
Mm.
there've been times that I've been under immense pressure, and I just take a minute to say, God, please help me, or give me the strength. You don't have to kneel down and pray and scabash for 1 hour before you know that you've had a conversation with God. It could just be a sentence, it could just be a line. Sometimes when I'm driving in the morning, I'm listening to music that uplifts my spirit. And when I get to the office, I'm very uplifted and I'm ready to get the work done. And that's my faith, that's my journey. So I don't have structured, it doesn't have to that. For some people, they do like structure, so they wake up early, they have their devotion, and they get along with their day. I go with God in my day pretty much. So um there's a place of prayer, there's a place of praise, there's a place to ask. Sometimes I find out that I've made a mistake and I'm just like, God, please help me fix it. And then I have an idea, and I resolve it immediately and it just works. So it's nothing complicated, it's just simple. You have that relationship with him, just work with him. It's not complicated. Yeah.
I like how you say that it's not complicated. The same way you can speak to somebody is the same way
Yeah.
you continuously speak to God. I find that many professionals sometimes struggle with this area in terms of their faith. They really want to do more. I think one of the things I tell people is rather than spend time in guilt, rehearsing the guilt and feeling bad, build that muscle of quickly switching off the guilt and saying, God is not condemning me. Instead of, because sometimes you end up saying, "Ah, I've not prayed since. Hey, this now, wow, what kind of life is this?" And you're complaining. That time you have to complain is the time you could have been using to praise or to pray. But you have turned that energy into
Sure.
complaining mode, and that then becomes, a downside. Wow, this has really, really been
Mm-hmm.
insightful. Speaking for an hour and doesn't feel that way. One area I want to touch on before we leave again is the question of managing your manager. That's something I teach people, right? As a happy employee coach, teaching people how to manage their managers, how to maximize salary. I'd like you to just reflect on your journey and say, share one or two tips that have helped you to manage your supervisors, your managers, right? And share one or two tips as well on managing your finances, maximizing salary, and then we'll call this a wrap.
Okay, so I think I'll start with finances and then wrap up with managing your manager. For finances, it's easy, right? You do your budget. For those that don't have a budget, it's important have a budget. It could be a monthly budget. You're reviewing it every month, and then you are sticking to it. And why is it important? Because somewhere along the line, if you're an impulsive person, you just keep buying and buying and buying. But if you have a budget, you're able to stick to it, and you're able to curb a bit of those excesses. So it's important that you have a budget on a monthly basis. It's also important that you have a savings. And what do I mean by that? So, depending on your responsibilities as of today, so you know what your monthly expenses are, and then you need to be able to bring out a certain amount of money to save every month. And why is it important? It's important for you to have a savings for unprecedented, unexpected events, and even for growth as well. So it could be 20% of your salary that you have kept, in an investment that will grow or mature, while you have allotted the remaining percentages of your salary. It could be 30%, it could be 40%. It's important that you continue to put money in a savings that compounds interest on a monthly basis. So beyond saving, you're also growing. And a number of these banks already have, their asset management arms, or they also have their investment apps on your phone. So all you just need to do is bank with them, download the apps, and you can even put your funds in investments immediately. You don't even need to go to a bank to do it anymore. What I do is once I get my salary, I've already removed money straight,
Mm.
into my portfolio, and you're growing your portfolio. And then once your portfolio is substantial enough, you can then invest in other things. But it's important to start building your portfolio from now.
So that's what I would say. So budget, from your budgeting, you know what sort of your expenses you have on a monthly basis. And from that, you are able to determine what you can save on a monthly basis as well and grow your investment portfolio. The other question was around
Managing
what
your
was
manager.
managing your manager. So it's important that you also, I mean, beyond your manager being emotionally intelligent, you also need to be emotionally intelligent. And what do I mean by that? You need to understand your manager, understand how your manager works. It's important because you might need to adapt your work style to your manager's work style. So it's important for you to know your manager, know how your manager works, and then you work in line with that. And you cannot overemphasize the role of proactivity in work. Sometimes, I mean, my focus when I was growing up in the firm was to continue to make my managers redundant. And what did I need to do to get that done? Anticipate. And that's where proactivity comes in. So I anticipated what needed to get done, and then I did it. So, and how did I do that? I worked with the productivity tools available to me. My Outlook, I scheduled meetings, I scheduled reminders, so that way I was getting work done very quickly with productivity tools. We're in the age of AI now. AI does everything for me, and I cannot overemphasize my use of AI. I mean, Copilot, on the one hand, looks at my calendar, looks at my day, and tells me what I need to do in my day, what meetings I have, and it just does it for me. So I'm already organized from the beginning of the day. So, how well are you leveraging productivity tools to make your work efficient, um, and make your manager redundant as well? It's also very important. Um, do good work, put in the work and do good work. I mean, nobody's perfect. There will definitely be one or two things, to work on. But you have put in the work. And what do I mean by that? If you're writing a report, go and look for an existing report that has been done before. Look at how it was couched, and then based on that, build on your report. That way, you've already taken into consideration the feedback from this same manager on other deliverables. So it's not a lot of work for your manager to do at the end of the day. So that's why I said do good work and do smart work. So once you've gotten a template, go with the template. And that's from a reporting perspective. If you need to set up meetings, proactively go through the calendar, approach your manager. These are the times when you'll be available. When can I schedule? So that way you've taken out the time of going through the calendar and looking through it to discuss. So there are some things that you just need to, and that's why I said you need to be proactive. Proactivity takes away a lot of stress, right?
Mm.
And that also helps you and your manager and work efficiently with your manager.
Hmm. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I like that we're ending on this note. The fact that you need to know how your manager works and adapts to their work style and focus on making them redundant. If you really want to grow, if you really, 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 really want to grow, the key, the secret is to make your manager redundant. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for
Thank
spending this
you.
time with us. We've learned a lot, taking notes. We have people on LinkedIn as well, dropping comments. Thank you so, so much for joining us this evening. Happy employees. I know you've gotten value. Do well
Thank
to
you.
repost this on your LinkedIn page. Send it to your WhatsApp status. Let people learn. Take opportunity to learn about what we learned today from a leader who has risen over the years, right, to partner in KPMG. Thank you so much, sis, and have a fantastic
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.